In this video, we're going to be explaining the ending cutscene to Modern Warfare 3 Zombies. It's the final cinematic you unlock after completing all Act 3 missions and complete the boss fight, and begins to lay the framework of an interesting modern storyline but involving everything from Cold War. But to explain the ending, we have to go to the beginning of Modern Warfare Zombies during the intro cutscene to set up the narrative. We know that Viktor Zakhaev has created a faction called Terminus Outcomes to try and discover the last known quantities of Ethereum. After finding the vials, the squad try to leave, only to find that local security has raised the alarm and military police are on their way. A firefight ensues and Zakhaev's forces are severely outnumbered. Under fire and in desperate straits, he resorts to throwing one of these Ethereum vials towards his attackers before retreating. The vial containing the dark Ethereum shatters on the ground, and almost instantly a cloying purple fog spreads rapidly through the streets, transforming the living into bloodthirsty zombies. Far from fearful, Zakhaev smiles, realizing that this weapon he holds is like no other he could possibly have conceived. From this moment, Zakhaev was hellbent on trying to create as much of the dark Ethereum as possible, and then enters one of the most important new characters in this Modern Warfare Zombie storyline, a character called Dr. Ava Jansen, a physicist who has incredible knowledge on Ethereum. In the modern day, 40 years on from Black Ops Cold War, the idea of alternate dimensions and worlds within worlds is becoming more and more of a conspiracy theory which more people are starting to believe, and the element Ethereum is undiscovered but theorized, with Dr. Ava Jansen suggesting that the energy of the Ethereum could be harnessed, providing infinite supplies of clean, sustainable energy. This wealth of knowledge that she seems to possess that no one else does was very attractive to Zakhaev, and so on the hunt to try and discover more Ethereum, he sets up a fake company to hire her to continue her research on energy production, but in reality she was set up, as he was only using her to further benefit his gains in trying to find and possess more of Ethereum rather than using it for the greater good. Us as Operation Deadbolt slowly learn about Dr. Jansen, and in the first act we go ahead and save her, to bring her in for questioning for what we believe at first for her to be a bad person, helping Zakhaev for evil intentions, but through interrogation she suddenly realizes that she did not know who Zakhaev really was, and that with all the Ethereum he possesses, there is something dangerous that is about to happen, but she's fairly certain she can find a way to neutralize all the Ethereum that Zakhaev possesses. From Zakhaev's point of view, she is now disposable. He's gotten what he wants out of her, and then he wants to kill her. Dr. Jansen and Operation Deadbolt then go ahead with testing a ether neutralizer, which destabilizes any Ethereum within its blast radius. The test was a success, meaning that if they use this neutralizer, it will be able to destroy all of Zakhaev's Ethereum, rendering it useless. The only issue is the test was done on raw, unprocessed Ethereum, and what Zakhaev possesses is highly enriched. Dr. Jansen stresses that with her projections, the weapon-grade Ethereum can destroy all of Zakhaev's Ethereum, but it's at a risk, and so they need to put the trust in her that this will work. We then also learn that Zakhaev obtained key research about Ethereum written by Dr. Oscar Strauss from Black Ops Cold War, a callback which Ravenov remembers fondly. They learn that Zakhaev stored Strauss's research in a vault, which will be heavily guarded by Terminus Outcomes, but they hold the key into upgrading the Ethereum neutralizer so it will be strong enough to destroy Zakhaev's Ethereum. The team all agree and are happy, and they're about to set off, but Dr. Jansen suddenly has a massive headache, something which Ravenov recognizes as being a little abnormal. Something isn't quite right. This could be contributed down to the fact that she was exposed to Ethereum during the Ethereum neutralizer test, and this could be Treyarch throwing the first of a few breadcrumbs as to what exactly is going on with this character. Later on, Dr. Jansen and Operation Deadbolt make their way to Zakhaev's research vault, where awaiting them is a giant ether worm called Orcus. Mere moments from death, Dr. Jansen activates the Ethereum neutralizer, releasing a massive explosion of energy, opening a dark ether portal that is sucking everything into it. Notice as she was pulling the handle that electricity was flowing through her hand, potentially coming from the fact that she was near Ethereum. During this, the neutralizer depowers all of Zakhaev's remaining Ethereum. But the real show-stopping moment happens here, where Dr. Ava Jansen is slowly floating up in the air towards the dark ether portal. She isn't being sucked up into the gravitational pull like everything else, but slowly floating. And then the biggest moment of all, a shadowed entity suddenly appears on the other end of the portal and whispers the words, "Let us in." Now, there is likely only one explanation on who this is, and this, of course, is none other than Samantha Maxis. At the end of Black Ops Cold War's Forsaken, with the help of Samantha, she used her powers to activate the Ethereum gun turrets, which exposed the Forsaken's core. Samantha sacrificed herself and dived into its core, sealing herself into the dark ether. Her sacrifice was enough for the Forsaken to be weakened to be able to be put into a containment chamber. Ever since this moment, we could assume that Samantha has been trapped within the dark ether for all this time. 40 years in the modern world, but in the dark ether, time works differently, where it has been even longer. We know from Black Ops Cold War that the Forsaken was originally the trapped soldier Zykov, who over the many hundreds of years trapped in the dark ether was able to become the strongest entity in the dark ether at that point, called the Forsaken. And there is every chance that Samantha Maxis has now also consumed absolutely everything in the dark ether to become an even more powerful entity than what we saw her become at the end of Black Ops Cold War. Now, within the dark ether, an entity is unable to open a portal to let themselves into the real world. Someone from the real world needs to be able to open a dimensional portal from our side, and as a pure accident of the neutralizer, it created a portal which almost allowed this entity to enter the real world. Dr. Ava lets out a massive scream, and it's obvious that with the headache we saw in the previous cutscenes, she has had voices in her head from the other side communicating with her to try and open a portal to let them back into the real world. From that explosion of the dark ether portal, it seems that Dr. Ava consumed some of the dark ether herself, emitting the glowing purple eyes just like we saw with Samantha Maxis, very likely meaning that she will also slowly start to possess these ethereal powers. Judging from her truly remarkable knowledge of Ethereum, there is so much more to this character's backstory than what we are being told here. The explanation on how Samantha knew so much about the dark ether is that she came from the original ether timeline and grew up from being a child into a full adult in the new Dark Ether storyline, of course possessing all of that knowledge of what happened. There could be another dimension in which this exact scenario happened similarly, but with Dr. Ava Jansen as a child rather than Samantha. And that Samantha and Eddie are not the only children that grew up from the Ether timeline in this new Dark Ether universe with extensive knowledge and actual experience with the Dark Ether. We learn that the Ethereum neutralizer was successful in its mission, but not without consequence. It had a good initial clear on detonation, but dark ether contacts are repopulating. There's also an energy spike in the red zone that has never been seen before. And as we see it pan out, we see this massive energy surge coming from the red zone that is a portal that looks directly towards the dark ether. In my mind, there is only two explanations for how Dr. Ava Jansen, one, knows so much about the Ethereum and has a connection to the dark ether itself. Either she grew up in this timeline just like Samantha Maxis did from the Ether timeline, or between the events of Black Ops Cold War and Modern Warfare 3, there was a time where she, as a human, was trapped within the dark ether itself, potentially as a child, and now back here as an adult has all this extensive knowledge, but clearly doesn't seem to remember any of what happened with her dark ether experiences. But it looks like Ava Jansen could possess the same powers as Samantha Maxis, which is very exciting, but comes at a cost that bad people will want to try and weaponize that. Zakayev is still active in the storyline. He is currently just ran away from this scenario, so we're going to have to see what happens, but we don't have long to wait because Season 1 is going to introduce a bunch of new missions and story missions which will have their own exciting gameplay aspects and cinematics to continue the story. If you enjoyed this video and you found it informative and got you a little bit more excited to learn about the Modern Warfare Zombies storyline within the Dark Ether, let me know by dropping a thumbs up and subscribing down below.